today we have the mayor, Mayor Shirley Washington. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
So let's just jump in. You know, all the other candidates can come at this and say, this is what I would do. You have been mayor now, or will have been mayor for 8 years. Tell us what you have done and why voters should pull the lever for you once again.
That's a question I don't hardly know where to start because we've done a lot. We've done so much. We've worked hard. One of the things I did when I was campaigning and when I was first elected, people would always ask, what will you do? What are your campaign promises? What are you going to do? And I always said, I can't tell you what I'm going to do, and I'm not making any promises. I can make one promise only, and that's one I know I can keep. And that promise is I will work hard. And ever since I've been in, since 2017, January 1, we've done that. If everybody can recall, when we first came into office, you couldn't drive down Main Street. There were areas, more than one space, 3 in particular, where bricks covered the streets. So one of the first things we did was to get that street cleared up, open Main Street, so traffic could flow again on Main Street.
I remember it had been a couple of years since UAPB had even been able to have a homecoming parade down Main Street.
Most definitely. So we were able to get that cleared up. And then the library project was underway at that time. So I embraced that project with support. And we campaigned for the library, and we got that going. We met with Friendship early on in 2017. You remember Friendship opened the school up, the A-frame building over on 40th and Hickory. We met with them. I wasn't a charter school advocate because I'm from the public school
Right.
arena, and so I wasn't in favor. So when I met with that group, I told them, no, I'm sorry, I don't believe I can embrace you with my support. But then we met a second time, and I had to change my thoughts on that because I was looking at empty rooftops. I was looking at parents making decisions as to where they wanted their kids. And if they didn't choose the public schools and they had no other choices, then that was going to leave us with some empty rooftops, and they were going to move to other communities. And so I started doing research on that school. They had multiple schools in the Washington, D.C. area. And actually, they even let me go there and look at some of those schools. And I saw quality education taking place. So I've embraced the support of Friendship. Some people say it's not good, but other people say it's the best thing that could have happened because there are so many people who are saying, yes, my kid is still in school in Pine Bluff at Friendship, and they're happy with the quality of education that they're getting. So I think also not just the school on 40th and Hickory, but then the new Main Street school. I think that helped to bring life to downtown because in cities all over the country, you know how New York City, their schools are PS 14 or PS
Right.
156. And I didn't know at first what that meant, but it's public school 146. And it's right there on Broadway. It's right downtown in the heart of. So I thought that kind of breathed that life into downtown, and especially with the remodel, the work that they've done at the Arts and Science Center across the street, the library there. I think that has really brought life to that area where there once was a fallen building in the
Right.
middle of the street right there in that spot. I think we've done an amazing job at bringing in our state-of-the-art aquatic center. When I first came in to town, there was an aquatic center that had been started previously by Mayor Carl Reedus, and then I think Mayor Hollingsworth had embraced that project. And actually, that's how I got involved in city government. I had retired after 38 years in the classroom. Once you've spent that many years in public service, you put a lot of things on hold in your life. So for the first few couple of years, I guess, after I retired, I was traveling, trying to catch up on some of those things that I had put on hold, some of the tasks and chores around the house. I started doing some construction projects with my husband. I got bored, and I called Irene Holcomb one day, and I told her, you know, I think I want to do something different. She said, well, why don't you volunteer down at the mayor's office? So I called to see if they had any spots where I could volunteer, and I started volunteering there. And you know, you never know what God is preparing you for when you start working on a project until you see what you're about to embark upon. And when we started visiting the centers across the state I was helping them plan and design that center. I was the only one in the room who had ever really attended swim meets or who had gone to multiple swimming facilities. And the only reason I had that experience is because my baby daughter had lived in Scottsdale, Arizona for a couple of years, and her child, Erin, started taking swim lessons. So I would go to Scottsdale on a regular basis, and every time I would go, it was my task to get her to her swim lessons. And I would sit there and watch those kids take those swim lessons. And then we started, as she got older, we started going to swim meets when she joined swim teams. So I was going to swim meets all over, my husband and I. Sometimes we'd travel down to, when they moved to Kansas, we would travel down to Topeka and different places for swim meets. And so I had a vision for that facility. I looked at the ledges. I talked to those people about what would you do different if you were to build a new. So as a result, Pine Bluff has a state-of-the-art facility because I think partly because of some of that vision that I had from prior experience. People from all over the state come. Harrison was getting ready to build a new aquatic center. And the mayor called me one day and said, we're looking at the possibility of bringing an aquatic center in, and everybody's telling me we don't need to do anything until we go to Pine Bluff. And so they brought a team down. They looked at our Conway was getting ready to build an aquatic center. They came. So I think that's a masterful accomplishment. One of the things that people were saying was that, well, the kids may not be able to afford it. They may not be able to afford swim lessons. I'm proud to say that ever since we've had that facility open, we've had grant money on the books so we can provide free swim lessons, not only for kids, but also for adults. You know, those are things that we've gotten started. When I came in, there was a lot of talk about the community center, the Mayoral Community Center over in Central Pine Bluff, and talk as to whether we should tear that building down or whether we should remodel the building. And so I carried a couple of contractors, architects in, and one said tear it down. The other said it has strong bones. This building can be restored. So from that, we put a plan in place. We worked with Reed Architectural Firm and others, and we turned that into a state-of-the-art facility. Couldn't have built it for the 1.2 million or so that we put into the renovation of it, because of the concrete, the steel, the strong bones, as we said that it had. And it had a regular full-scale basketball gym, plus the building to the side, which is the boxing gym, and then the main base core facility itself. And we ended up with a state-of-the-art kitchen, the dance room, the reading room, the computer lab, science and math room, the common space. It's an amazing facility. So I think that's a masterful accomplishment.
Is that hitting on all cylinders now that you turned it over to the Boys and Girls Club to run?
Yes, they're seeing about, I was over there just a couple of weeks ago, they're seeing about 70 kids a day. And for now, that's pretty good. Numbers went down post-COVID. So they've gotten back up. During COVID, you know, we went down very low. But I think when you're seeing between 70, they're saying somewhere between 70 and 75 kids a day. And actually, I was over there one day recently, and I was there till the kids started flowing in after school.
Okay.
So
the yang to the yin question of what have you done? Is there anything during your first 2 terms that you wish you had done? Do you have any regrets? Things that looking back, you wish you had taken care of?
Well, some of those things during the first 2 terms.
Yes.
Some of those things that we have not done that I'm looking forward to doing, if I can earn another term, is building some homes. We need houses. We need affordable housing here in town, because a lot of people leave Pine Bluff because they can't find a suitable place to live. So we need investors, because the city can't just come in and build houses. So you need investors. And to bring those investors in, what they like is property. And so we haven't had space, the kind of space that they are looking for. They want 5, 10, 15, 20 acres. And so we've acquired the old property, Southeast School property over off Ohio, right off East Harding on Ohio Street. We've got that property abated, It's clear now, and we're beginning to work with investors to build housing over there. We're looking at building multifamily, starting with, because single family units right now is still very costly to build. So we're looking at some fourplexes, and these will be senior citizen fourplexes, 60 units of that, and then we're going to do apartments on the backside. So we're looking at 120 units total, 60 units of each.
How much land is that?
27 acres. So we're going to develop it in phases. We're looking at 12 acres in phase one, because we have to mitigate flooding as well. We just had engineers to give us their reports last week, and they want us to raise it up about 2 feet. And so that's
Did that property seem like it was flood prone? I don't remember that.
yes, we
Was
always
it?
knew that it was. We knew that it was, but it's a low margin. It's not like building out around Walmart. It's not like the Chick-fil-A
Right.
property or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's a low margin. I worked at that school when I first came to Pine Bluff, and there were times when we had heavy torrential rains and the school would flood
Oh, really?
occasionally.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things we talked about before we started this was Opportunity House. And I
Yes.
went back and looked at a story back in July 22 that actually I wrote. And it was when DePaul came to the city. I think they were one of the vendors, like maybe the only one that was viable, and made a pitch. And in that story, you said it would probably, the cost was like $500,000 a year, and you said the city should be able to come up with about 300 of that in grants, and which would leave about 200 out of pocket. So tell us where we are. I understand that it's, at this point, it's not a shelter, which is what you were aiming for. It's at least initially, it's a day room. I mean, take us through that process. That's a big operation. That's a big
Okay,
undertaking.
it's a big operation. It's a big undertaking, and it is near and dear to my heart that we complete that we get it open. I don't remember us saying we were going to contribute 300,000. Was that in that article? Okay, well, I don't know how we
No.
got to that.
200.
No.
It was gonna be 5, and the 3, it said the city should be able to get with grants and through other monies, and the 2 was coming from the city.
And I think we were going to be helping them possibly with some fundraising, maybe, but the amount of
Yes.
money that I recall us actually promising them from the city was 100,000 for the first year. That was year one, to help them get started. And so.
Well, it's been a year and a half, so things have probably changed some.
So yeah, and so that's where we are still. We met with them a week or so ago, and we're still at the 100,000. Now the reason the operation changed from a full-scale facility operating 24/7 to a day shelter operating 3 days a week, and then it would do breakfast and then a snack 3 days a week, provide showers, laundry services, and other services for them during that time. That would be for the first year. And that change was made because DePaul had applied for, I think, a $200,000 ESG grant. Now, what I was remembering was that the facility operation was going to run right around just over 300,000 for that first year. But they were hoping to have had the 5, but they applied for an ESG grant and they were only awarded 23,000. Now they have an application on the table for a continual of care grant. They haven't heard from that grant yet. They don't know what the award will be, but they get that award announcement in May. So we hope that they'll, get that. They feel positive that they will. And then they are applying for some other grants. And then they have a rigorous fundraising campaign that they have a fundraising person who is engaged in getting those off the ground for this facility as well. So the only money we're pledging right now is the $100,000 from the city. And then they asked, since they didn't get as much as they were going to get from the ESG grant, that's they wanted us to try to participate in paying some of the utility bills.
Mhm.
So they're going to pay electric, and we're looking at paying water and gas. And that would just be within some of the money that we already have in the budget, because we've been maintaining that building ever since we've had it.
Right. The reason you embarked on that building was because we have a homeless population, a sizable homeless population. Will we ever see that building turned into actually something that would allow them to spend the night?
Yes,
Okay.
that's our goal, and we're hoping that that will happen by 2025.
Okay.
You know, and it won't be January of 2025 necessarily, but the conversation that we had last week is within 1 year of the day we open. And so let's say we may not open until March. We had a date set, and we've had some change orders that we had to make, and that's what changed the schedule. One of them was, you have these unforeseen problems that you encounter whenever you're doing a remodel or a renovation.
It's an old building.
On an old building. One was there was a major termite infestation in one area of the building. We had to get that done. And whenever your contractors come in, or your contractors or your architects come in and do a plan for you, they give you a quote. And if that quote is above what you can pay or what you want to pay, then you value engineer it out some of the projects. And we did that. We value engineered out like the floor installation, and there were a couple of things. And then there were some problems that they ran into with parts, equipment coming in. There was a delay on some of those things. There was a problem that they encountered. They wanted to make sure they got everything correct in that plumbing, because we had to transform a couple of bathrooms, both bathrooms really to a degree, but we had to put showers in. And so the plumbing held them up a bit on some of that as well.
So people can go there in the mornings, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, something like that, I think I heard.
For 3 days.
And get a shower, eat.
Yes, with breakfast.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So is the building completed, close to it?
Close to it. We're finishing up on floor installations right now. We have to put in door stops. We have to put in the equipment. Right now, we're trying to get the kitchen and the common area, laundry room, office spaces, all that ready, and then we'll finish furnishing out the bedroom areas after we get all that done. Since we're not doing full care services initially, but we'll be ready.
I've got a couple of questions about Go Forward. You have been a key supporter of Go Forward. Where do you stand today?
Where do I stand today? Well, I think after the voters have spoken, and they spoke twice, and I think that Go Forward is gone.
Well, you might assume that, but and maybe you know that, but we had a story a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half ago, and we asked, "What are your plans?" And they did not say we're done. We're folding up our tent. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, are they waiting until after the mayoral primary to see if there's a friendly mayor or an unfriendly mayor, and maybe they would put it back on the ballot in November? Do you think that's not happening?
I don't think it's happening. No, I don't think it's happening. Now, they're not gone, now, because they'll continue to collect tax dollars until September. And our tax dollars are usually like 2 months behind, and then they have projects to finish. So I'd say they're still going to be cleaning up, finishing up for basically the rest of this year. Because you have September, then afterwards you have those 2 months where the tax dollars will continue to flow in. So that's November, September, October, November. So you pretty much got your year out. But I'm hoping that they can finish up or come as close as they can to completing the projects that are on the table, because once that time is over, those projects revert over completed to the city.
Let's say they want to put it back on the ballot in November. So whatever the days are, what would that be? September, maybe they come before the council, or there's a measure before the council, and it needs your vote to be put on the ballot. Would you support them?
I would not. I would not. I'm not going to say we don't need a tax moving forward, but
you think the time is run for Go Forward?
Yes, sir. Most definitely.
Okay. Have you been pleased with What are some things that you have been pleased with what they've done, and maybe if you have been unpleased with what that money's been used for?
Well, I've been pleased with the homeowners program that they put in place for fire and police officers. I think a lot of those officers did benefit from that. The Teach to America, or that maybe might be the name of it, but I like that program, very pleased there. And the reason is because I know several people, even from my church, who are thankful that they were able to participate in that program. One young lady completed her master's degree. Well, I know about 3 that completed their master's degrees, and another one became certified to become a school
Explain how
administrator.
that program works.
I'm not going to get into the details of that
Okay.
one because I never did work specifically with it. I don't want to give you
Just
anything
aware
that's
that
not right.
they help them.
I know they helped them, and I didn't go to a lot of those particular meetings, so I wasn't involved. But yeah, they paid for all of their fees and all. But that was very, very, very beneficial. I love the fact that it brought the life of King Cotton back to Pine Bluff. Pine Bluff, Southeast Arkansas, the whole area benefited from that, and I hope there's some way we can keep it going. I don't know whether you attended any of the games, but I think it's a valuable sports venue that we have going in December, right after Christmas, and I think people from all over. There was a couple from Hot Springs who came every night. Her husband loved the sports, so he came years ago, and he's been to every one of those games. And then there are people from all over. And you know what I like about when I'm at King Cotton, I'll ask people, how do you feel here? And they say they feel safe. I like that too. I really, really love that. I like the fact that with the urban renewal, we did remove a lot of blighted properties, a lot of blighted commercial properties and residential properties. Now, as we move forward, I would like to see us do the infill for the residential properties that are spotted throughout the city, and I think we need to get really aggressive about doing that.
Infill being encouraging builders to
build houses on those lots
that have
been cleared.
cleared.
Yeah, and some of them, you know, you may have a half of a block, and there are areas where you have almost a block. We spotted some of those, and so if we can get builders to come in, I think Home Again or Matt Mosler's group is doing some over there in the area where they did the groundbreaking. I can't even remember the streets right now, but and 33rd is in the area of 33rd and Plum, I believe. So I think those were good things. I think a lot of partnerships were formed. I think I know we have some other. We got the eye of a lot of people across the state. And we have people who are interested in coming in and investing at this time. And I think that was a result of some of the positive movement that people have seen in the city. And I think that's not just go forward, but I think it's just the city as a whole has come together. There's interest in a progressive movement in Pine Bluff.
So you mentioned the city might need a tax.
Possibly. I'm sorry.
But do we need a tax that's basically filtered through an outside group?
No.
No.
If another tax comes through, just my opinion, it should run through the council and the mayor.
And what kinds of things would you do with that tax?
I do feel like we really needed the 3/8 cents public safety tax. And I say that because when I came into office, police officers and firefighters starting salaries were between 27, 28, and there were a few, depending on degrees or whatever, were making 29. I don't think there was anybody starting out at 30. And so other cities like Little Rock next to us, they were in the 40s. So today, we've gone from the 27, 28 to 42 to 46 for our starting salary. While we're at 42, 46, Little Rock and some of those other places are at 60, 65, right? So we're still behind. And so we still need to catch up. We're not, maybe not to where they are, but I think we still need to move the needle for those salaries. For equipment, for instance, now we have come a long way with our police cars, because when I came in, they had a lot of beat up, and you probably remember Ford LTDs those big Fords
Yeah.
and those big Mercurys on the street. I mean, some of the raggediest Dodge Chargers you've ever seen. And then they bought a fleet of Ford Explorers they were putting out when I came in. They were new, but they were no good. They didn't last. They went down, so we were just struggling. We were even paying for police cars that weren't even in service
You
anymore.
told me that the other day.
Yeah, and that, to me, that was a problem. So.
Because they had been financed so long,
Yeah.
they had already gone out of commission, and you're still paying them.
Yeah, and so they weren't lasting as long as they should have, because they were running 3 shifts a day. The car had no time to cool off, because you had 3 shifts, and A shift, I'll say, A shift is driving it, that shift, and they get out of it, and B shift is in it, and they get out. So the car never rests. So you're wearing these cars out. So my goal was to have take-home police cars, have a nice fleet of cars, and then have some kind of evolving program that we weren't just constantly buying cars. So we have a contract now with Enterprise Car Rental, and I think that's working. Now it does, we are paying just a little more. If we were paying, let's say, $325 a year, $325,000 a year on our police car note, we might be paying $425 now. But we have far more cars than we had, and we turn over every 4 years. And only one person is driving those cars. And so that's going to make those cars last much longer. So we have a nice, clean fleet. And I'm sure you've probably noticed that.
Yeah.
The take-home cars increases the visibility, the presence of police in the community. And I think that is a deterrent to crime.
So you're pleased with that leasing company?
So far we are. We're still, we're always negotiating, talking to them, making sure things are remaining the same, that we have a good deal with them.
So the next couple of questions are actually about crime, which is, we've been talking about police. We ended the year with 28 homicides, and 11 of those were to teenagers. Puts us at 11 times the national average for homicides, and by my calculation, I mean, I looked on the internet of most dangerous cities, and the top one was St. Louis, and actually, for one of the criteria, we're actually above them when it comes to homicide rate. So we got crisis of humanitarian sort, because people are dying. A lot of our people are dying. And then on the other side is just, I guess you would say, public relations, or sort of a business / quality of life crisis. Where does that, what can you do as a mayor to change that narrative?
I think one of the things that we've done is we've stopped some of the bleeding in the police department, because you always want to keep your qualified officers in the force, and there was a big turnover at one time. So we've gotten that bleeding stopped. And before we stopped that bleeding, our solve rate for crime wasn't as good as it is today. I think we're doing a better job there. I think the national average for solving crimes is at 52.2% or 53.2%, and I think right now we're at 67%. I think we've got to do a better job of community policing, and just based on what I've seen happening in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, York, Pennsylvania, Media, Pennsylvania, those cities that we visited when we were investigating as to whether we wanted to move forward with the GVI program, that group violence intervention program, it caters to the crime in that juvenile range. And I think that's going to help us more than anything. With the customs visits that we make, we have a good, strong GVI coordinator at this time, working closely with the police officer, the police department. We have an officer from the Sheriff's Department on board, an officer from the Pamela Police Department on board, the GVI coordinator. We're going to hire an assistant coordinator at some point once we get everything fine-tuned to see exactly what it is that person would do. I just want to believe that, looking at the statistics from those other cities who were once where we are, I think this is going to be the answer to a lot of our problems with crime when it comes especially to the juvenile crime.
You mentioned it used to be GRIP. What's it? It's group intervention, or?
Oh, this is group violence
Gang
intervention,
violence?
GVI.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to not use the word gang, because it's not all gang related.
Okay.
It is gang, but it's a lot, some of it is just group violence.
So we brought in some professionals
We did.
during the summer, when this was, when things were not going very well. We had a lot of homicides during the summer. And as far as I know, did those people just leave? I mean, do we have anything permanent that we're doing from that visit? Or are we inviting professionals in to help us with this? Or are we just hanging our hat on the
No.
new GBI coordinator?
We have a contract with the Kennedy Institute,
Okay.
John Kennedy. Yeah, we have a contract. And
Tell us about that.
well, they're the professionals who come and they collect data, the crime data. Now that's where we are right now. I'll have you invited to that next meeting, but they give us guidance based on the analysis of the data. Now the last data that they were supposed to collect, they're still working on that. We haven't gotten all of our analytical data put together yet, but once that comes together, we'll have a big meeting to look at what steps and strategies we need to put in place. Because we're just at the beginning stages of the development of the GDI program still.
Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah, we'll make sure you're invited to that next meeting. But there are strategies that will be put in place. You'll be able to spot the hot spots in the city. You'll be able to, working with Judge Brown's court, put a spotlight on those kids that need our services. And our services is going to be intervention and prevention.
I met the new coordinator at the warming center the other
Right.
day.
He's excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's visiting schools, and we're not just focusing on the teenage kids. We're going back to elementary, starting at the elementary schools, moving on up.
Okay. Are you pleased with the job Denise Richardson's doing as the police chief?
I am.
It seems like the drumbeat is, you know, not, I don't hear anything negative about her, except in the her handling, or at least what she said after the Maurice Taggart homicide. Did you have any thoughts about that? Was that a mistake?
She and I had a conversation in that regard.
Okay.
But overall, I think our officers respect her. I think she's very proactive. I think that she's forward thinking. She's making a move to make sure that that department is accredited. I think they'll have a visit to first week of February, an accreditation visit, with that team coming down to give us that accreditation. And I think that's a good move, because then the standards are set and things don't change from chief to chief. They'll have to abide by the Arkansas State Chief of Police guidelines. And I think that's what we've needed for a long time. So I like that move.
Did you express some displeasure with her about her comments?
About the Tiger comments?
Yes.
We had a conversation.
Okay. So how's your campaign going?
I'm not sure, because I'm doing the job. So when you're doing the job, you don't have a lot of extra time for a campaign. And like I said, I promised the people that I would work, and I'm working. So I've been working for almost 8 years now. And I hope the people can see that she's about the business of trying to accomplish as much as she can in a positive forward movement for the city of Pine Bluff. And that's what I'm doing.
What are your donors saying?
My donors? Well, really, I think they support me. Yeah. I always run a shoestring campaign. I don't spend a lot of money if I don't need to.
I've seen a lot of signs.
I have a lot of signs, but most of those signs were signs from 2 campaigns ago. It's signs from the storage shed. Yeah, everybody wanted to know, well, when are we gonna order the signs with your picture on them? I said, I don't want signs with my picture on them. I just want them to see my name. My picture won't go in the voting booth with me. So that wasn't important to me. I hope they remember the name is Washington. And if we're going to continue the progress that has started, vote Washington.
I did skip a crime question. I guess you could call it a crime question. For one of these interviews, I played a recording on my phone from New Year's Eve this year, and it just sounds like a war zone, as it always does, and everybody who lives here knows that. The one comment we got was, they said, "That's New Year's Eve. What about those of us who listen to that every night?" And actually, it may have been Joni who said it. Well, it was either Joni or Vivian Flowers. That every night at 3 a.m. or so, they start hearing gunfire. That's illegal, right? You're not supposed to fire guns in the city limits. But does anybody ever do anything to try to dissuade people? I mean, I hear you talk about litter, but I don't know, does anybody ever, use the bully pulpit and say, don't do that, that's illegal and it's not safe?
Right, we send officers to those areas, and
Do you do anything beforehand to remind people that?
we haven't done anything particularly addressed directly to that, but we talk about the automatic rifles, illegal possession of those, and firing of those, because you never know when you may have somebody hit by a stray bullet. But that's basically what we've done as far as that's concerned. I will say that many citizens who were having a lot of gunshots in their neighborhoods are telling us that it's not as bad. Even some of our public officials have told us that it's not as bad.
In the cacophony of gunfire, actually, I heard a couple of bursts of automatic gunfire, almost like machine gun. It just seemed like a string of shots, not like pulling a trigger. So that's beyond illegal. And it just seems to feed into this narrative of we're just very casual about guns and gunfire here. So tax dollars, you mentioned the tax dollars. Do we spend our tax dollars, the money that we have now, do we spend it wisely?
I think we do. I think we're, now you know that when I was telling you, I think we met the other day and I was telling you that some people think that when you have, like when I came in, you have a $30 million budget. And you have a $30 million budget, and that's a lot of money. But when you have debt, like if you have cars or you have buildings that are built, some of those bills have to be paid from that money, and some of those bills are not going to be paid until, like when I came in, there was some that wouldn't mature until 2036, 2034. So that's money that's already spent. So you don't have any extra dollars. So the budget was, as they said back then, it was completely flat. And so we had to, I mean, when I came in, it's like, we don't have any money to do anything extra with. So how do we get extra revenue in here? And that's when I started talking to John Barry. And I didn't want to bring a casino in even then. That was tough. I started talking to him in 2015. No, that's not right. 2016. I was mayor-elect. It was maybe October of 2016. He said I wanted to make a heavier or greater investment in this community. And I told him I couldn't discuss that with him because I was not the mayor. I was only mayor-elect at that time. I said, so let me get into office and we'll have a conversation. At that time, I was so naive, I didn't know his business was gaming. I didn't know it was casino gaming. And so we met in March of 2017. I said, give me time to get into the office, get a feel of where I am, and then we'll have a conversation about your investment. And that's all he was talking about, coming in with an investment, bringing the pawpaws back to Southeast Arkansas, Pine Bluff. And so we had that conversation in March, and I had to think about the revenue. I thought about the jobs that it would bring. I still wasn't for it. It wasn't until about June that I went down to to the casino in Oklahoma, and I did a tour of everything that they had down there, and my feelings were totally different once I came back. I talked to people who had worked in that casino for 9 years. It was 9 years old at that time. Some of them had been there that entire 9-year period, and they talked about how the operation had transformed their lives. They had been there, they were, they had jobs, they had 501ks, they were looking forward to being there another 9 years. And I talked to the law enforcement. They said crime had not increased, they didn't see any change. I talked to people who worked in the kitchen, who worked on the gaming floor, and everybody was so positive. I said, well, this can't be all that bad. Then I started looking at tax dollars. I started talking to mayors of cities where they had casinos, and some of them weren't getting any revenue from casinos. So that was a deal that had to be
Weren't getting any revenue.
They were not getting any extra revenue, no. And then some were, but the ones who were getting revenue, the highest one I talked to was like 15% of the tax gaming dollars. And so we were asking for 25. And I didn't think I would get 25, but that's what I was hammering for, 25. And I think we got close to 19.
I just did a story on this, 19 and a half.
19. What we ended up with, it was supposed to be like 19 at the beginning. I think it's more because we've gotten more, but that might be right. But so what do? Do you need the jobs? We needed the jobs. And so right now we have around 900 people, maybe a little more. I think we started out with a few more, but we have about 900 people employed at the casino, and about 70% or so of those are from Pine Bluff. A few come from other places. That's that money that we use for the raises that we said we raised the salaries from 28% to, $1,000 to the 40 something. And then we had some other workers in the city, clerks that were making like 19,000 when I came in. Now the lowest paid person is 30,000, and that money came basically from that new revenue, because that's basically the new revenue that we've received in our city.
Right.
And so all bills go up, lights go up, everything goes up, increase. So we have to have money for that. We are buying some new fire trucks. We have 2 that are going to be delivered soon. That's going to come from that money. The additional money that we're paying for the upgraded police fleet is coming from that money. So yes, I think we're using the money wisely. And what we do, I sit down with my finance director and we look at bonds and old debt that was there when we came in. And we're hammering away at paying some of that down as we have extra dollars that we can do that. And we're also trying to make sure we have as healthy of the savings bonds, savings money as we can.
So what are some of the old bills that
Revenue
we're paying
reserve.
off?
Well, mainly we were paying off the old cars and
Okay.
trucks.
Okay. So we have been 60-something thousand, 65,000 population. We're probably somewhere under 40 by now. We lost a grocery store. We're losing a furniture store. Those are not the only businesses that have closed up over the years. Can you say this is the bottom for Pine Bluff? I know businesses come and go, but it seems like in Pine Bluff they go and they don't come back. What can you say, what can you do as mayor to push that in the other direction?
I think what we're going to have to do to push that in the other direction is to focus on our workforce, because I think that has a lot to do. And I think we won't be able to sell homes, to build those homes and fill those houses if we don't have a good, strong workforce in the city. I don't know if you know, and I know you know, Chris Hart. He's always talking about
Central
Maloney. You have the capacity to have 3 shifts at Central Maloney, and he's running 1, right? And if a person is trained, they have a welding skill, for instance, they can get a job at Central Maloney, making about $50,000 a year. And you can't hire enough people. So I think we're going to have to motivate our people to go through workforce trainings. We have workforce training at CARC, and he had a workforce program there. CAD, Southeast Arkansas Economic Development District, has a workforce program, as well as our workforce services that are right across the street from the convention center. So we've got to get our young people into those workforce services, as well as I'm thankful for People Shores. They do technical training, and the last time I went over there, their space was full of folk getting technical training, being paid as they get that training. So I think it's going to be jobs, people getting the quality jobs, so that they have a work ethic that can sustain the businesses, to earn the salaries, earn the income, to sustain the businesses. And that's one of the things that we've been working on. We have a group over at Community Development right now, focusing on not just recruitment of businesses and stores, but also workforce. And they're working with CAD and the other agencies to do that. And I think that as we just hired a lady to go into that department to make sure that we're intentional in making these things happen.
Is there anything a mayor can do to attract industry?
That's usually the alliance.
Right. That's kind of their deal, but
It's kind of their deal, but I think if industry knows that you have a good workforce, two things they look for. They look for land, they look for area, and we work with the alliance with the county and the city, working with them on that.
so workforce is one of our big problems.
Yes, in my opinion, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I have found. But now, as far as recruitment, when it comes down to the stores and all of that, we do need that grocery store on East Hardin, because that's more than just Pine Bluff. That service outlying areas, outlying communities, and everybody's crying for that, and we're still working to recruit.
What was it, England, Arkansas lost Kroger, and then Edwards
That was Food
said
Giant.
they would come in. I guess you've not had any luck getting them interested in coming to Pine Bluff.
There are a couple of stores over, the smaller stores that are owned by them, but yes, we've talked to Edwards, we've talked to Kroger, Harps, multiple, every store out there.
Piggly Wiggly.
We've talked to Piggly Wiggly, but right now we do have a couple that are interested in possibly coming in.
Oh, really?
We have a store, we have a store that's getting, yes sir, I'm sorry. We have a store that's getting ready to come into the Super One space that was there on East Hardin. It's a retail outlet and we have about, at this point, 3 other retail stores that are looking to come into our city, along with a coffee shop out by Chick-fil-A.
Any thoughts on the mall?
The mall is, it's a privately owned business.
Right.
Are there thoughts on the mall? When I came in, I was pretty aggressive in trying to work with Ms. Vu on getting the mall in the hands of a responsible property owner. But she wasn't willing to accept what their offer was. I had one team that went in there and they offered her $4 million. She turned that down. Another team went in and offered her $5 million. She turned that down. I think she had 2 to offer 4 and 1 to offer 5. She turned all of them down. And I was pushing as hard as I could to encourage her to sell that property so it could be rescued before it got into too bad of a shape. And once it went downhill, she came to me to see if I could send back some of those people who I had sent to her initially. I told her, I'm sorry, they move on to other projects.
Yeah, that ship sailed.
So she wished that she had sold it, because she ended up getting nothing. And she may end up paying money to demolish it.
A young man out of Star City that's got designs on that building. We haven't heard anything else. I don't know if you know any more about that, but he's, he wanted to do some things with it that were not just recreation of a mall, but experiential things, training, some recreation, things that take advantage of being an indoor space. But even the guy that worked with him said it might take $50 million to put that building back on its feet. That's a ton of money.
That's right.
One of the issues that Pine Bluff faces, and this is near and dear to your heart, is our school system. Whitehall, just by comparison, they just seem to run laps around us. Now, Pine Bluff is past the village. It's gonna build a new high school. But this is not that many years ago, but the Pine Bluff school system, certainly the high school, used to be a juggernaut. I mean, they were in the top 5 in the state, maybe a smaller group than that, in national merit finalists, scholarships. Is there anything a mayor can do to help the school district get back some of that swagger? I know you've worked there for 4 decades.
I worked there for 4 decades, but honestly, I don't ever recall a mayor doing anything
Right.
to help promote or to build or in education, because the Department of Education manages schools, and then you have a school board. One of the things that I do as mayor is I try to maintain a good working relationship with the superintendent, and I'm proud to say that I feel like we have a board that we can respect right now. We are proud of the work that the coaches are doing. I am, at least, because I think those coaches are concerned about the academic health of the students, as well as that athletic prowess of those students in their programs, because I like the fact that they have to have a 2.5 or above grade point average. And some of the coaches were telling me that there was a time when some of those boys just didn't have grades. They were just coming to school. So now if that grade point average goes down below a 2.4, they have to sit out. They can't play. And I think that's a positive. I went to a athletic banquet for the basketball boys a few months back at the Pine Bluff Country Club, and they gave some awards to those players for academic performance. And I was really amazed and very pleasantly surprised to see that they had so many boys who had 4.0 at grade point averages, more than I could have ever imagined. And then, as I said, everybody was at a 2.5 or above. And I think the most of those boys had at least between a 3 and 4 point grade. Now this was basketball, grade point average. Haven't done that with football, but I think that's commendable for the coach to have such a standard, because he's concerned about not just basketball today, but he's concerned about their future as they move forward. I think that helps also to motivate other students to study. If they see that their peers, their athletes are studying and they're maintaining their grades, they're going to class. I go to as many of the school events as I can to let the kids know that they have a mayor who is concerned about education.
You have the class that always comes to the city council meeting.
Yeah, the whole class, this class
The
comes
AP, political science.
every month. I don't think they made it the last month. There's certain things that go on, but and they enjoy
Yeah.
the council meetings. We had the mayor's youth council going before COVID, and then the young lady who was working with my mayor's youth council moved out, and so I think she's going to eventually be able to start back working with us. I think that was very beneficial as well.
Well, that's all the questions I have. Do we have some?
We do. We have a few. So this is about the Pine Bluff police salary. Why are Pine Bluff police officers the lowest paid, and can you give them a raise to help attract more officers to the force?
Well, they're not the lowest paid, but they're not paid as the salaries comparable to some cities near us. But we are always working to find tax revenue to increase those salaries. We've done that ever since I've been in this position, and we will continue to do that.
What's the budget in your community development? How much of the money do you use each year, and how much money do you apply for each year?
The budget in the community development department comes in several pockets or several pools. And, like one pool might be $500,000, another one might be 360,000, another. So I don't know what that total is right now off the top of my head. But the goal is every year to use all of that money. Part of that money, like for one of the I'll say CDBG funds. That's community development block grant dollars. We use most of those funds this year or last year, 2023, for the renovation of the Opportunity House. And then some of that was used for repairs for some houses that they did. But we try to turn those dollars because we don't want to send them back. We need to invest those dollars here in the community.
Will you invest in equipment for the street department? Because a lot of the equipment is outdated, and I'm talking about the 80s.
That's right. We are looking at updating that equipment right now. Some of it has already been updated, but there's still a way to go. So we're looking at trading in some of those things that are not working for us, and we're looking at doing an inventory. We're working on this inventory now to get rid of some of the old, outdated equipment that we can't put back in service.
Street lights. Can Palm Bluff get new street lights throughout the city to help deter crime in the city? Those street lights are from the 1970s and 80s.
Yes, one of the things we've been doing is changing from the old mercury lights to the new LED lights in some of the high traffic areas. And in some of those neighborhoods, we're looking at putting in new street lights. We're meeting with some of the neighbors in some of those neighborhoods as well in our neighborhood watch meetings. And so, yes, that is something that is on the table.
When will our streets and roads be repaired that needed repair prior to the storm?
We have a street project that's going to start probably in the next month or so. We applied for money from the State Street Fund, and we received $300,000. But our lowest bid for the stretch of street that we're getting ready to resurface came to almost $500,000. So we're taking money that we had in the opera fund, I guess I should call it, in our opera fund that we have dedicated to street funds, to maximize it by using it to match grants. So we're writing for money for street repairs, and then that money can be used with the match. Like the $300,000 that we just got, we had to match it with $150,000, which made it stretch a little more. So we're doing a lot of that.
And then the last question, is
And let me say
Go ahead.
something. She said something about potholes.
just, that's included as far as street repair.
The street repairs. We're looking at the streets that are in greatest need of resurfacing, and that's what we're doing with this money that we're matching. And then with street repairs, that's just an ongoing project. Now I will say that anytime you have a freeze, you're going to have the occurrence of potholes, and we have them out there on that right now. I was in Little Rock yesterday, and I was hitting some potholes. I hit one on University. Thought I was going to knock the bottom out of my truck. So they're everywhere. So, but we are aggressive when it comes down to making those street repairs.
Is that app still active where people can report?
Click, fix, yes, it's still active.
Okay. And then this, I just saw it, I can't find it now, but it had to do with the grocery store. You mentioned retail, but they wanted to know specifically about a grocery store coming to the east side of town.
We're looking to bring a grocery store. We're trying to recruit a grocery store on the east side of town. The problem with the old grocery store as we try going through this recruitment process is that where Super One was 40,000 square feet. Nobody wants a footprint that big. So if you'll look at the space where Big Lots was, that was once a Safeway store. And it's 20,000 square feet. Well, it's right at 19 something, but it's almost 20. It's half the size. So we've had some who will say they'll consider coming in with a market of that size. Yeah. So we're working. We just have to find the right match for the spot.
Are there like this is my question, is there like incentives that the city can offer to, I guess, help sweeten the deal, or?
That's tough, because when you start offering incentives of that nature to one company, you have to do it to the next one that comes in, and we can't do it. But we are looking at some incentives that would draw someone in, and then working with our legal team to see how we can make a deal work. And then we feel like with the grocery store, we should be able to work something out, because we have a food desert, so it's more of a crisis situation. And I see that as a public health crisis, because if people don't have access to healthy foods, fresh fruits and vegetables, it creates a problem. And so we're looking at who we can find that will come in. Now, there was one company that we were looking at, and I think what they were asking for was far more than we could.
I was gonna ask, Councilmember Brunson was working with,
Oasis.
Oasis, and Go For It Palm Bluff was kinda there as, I guess, to see how they could play a part. Is that still?
Well, Go Forward is out of the picture
Right,
when it
right.
comes down to that. And I'm not sure, I haven't spoken with Councilmember Bronson, but I think what they were asking for was a bit more than what we could afford to do.
Okay.
I thought of a couple more questions.
I think it's time for me to go.
Just bring us up to date on the Black Mayors Association and the flooding money.
Well, that's difficult to do, because I don't know where we are with the Black Mayors Association and the flooding money. You'll know that when we started that process and we got going with that, I was doing everything that I could to pull away from the Black Mayors Association when it came down to that $32 million that was allocated to the city of Pine Bluff. And the only reason was because we have the capacity to administrate that grant ourselves, whereas the other cities, there are a lot of cities who couldn't administer, right? Because they don't have the capacity. And now the decision was made that the Black Mayors Association would be the sole administrator of all the cities who were awarded. So we really don't know where we are. We're planning a meeting with them soon. We don't know how much of Pine Bluff's money has been spent. We don't know really exactly how much work has been done. Based on the meeting that we had last Saturday, not much has been done.
Right.
So-
Seems like they're still gathering information.
They're still gathering information. When we started the process over 2 years ago, we were supposed to have had the planning phase completed within 18 to 24 months. And so we've passed the 18 to 24 month mark, and I asked them, where are we now? And they're saying we still have 18 months. I'm not sure that that's true, based on what I was, the information that we received initially. So,
The other one was more of an observation, I guess. 3 years ago, we had such a catastrophe with the water.
Liberty?
And we had very similar cold weather week before last, and came away not so bad, it seemed like.
Well, I had-
a little bit of a scare.
when I started hearing the news reports that this frigid temperatures were coming our way, and that the temps would be between 8 and 9, and then with the wind chill, it could be as low as 4, 3, or 0. I started seeing ourselves headed back to where we were. I believe that was 2019. So I started calling Liberty to ask them if they were preparing for this, because we didn't want to be in a similar situation. So I started calling them almost 2 weeks ahead of time, and continued. So I know that even that time, we didn't start seeing the leaks until we start thawing a bit, right?
Right.
So once the water starts flowing, that's when the water pressure started going down. So I was calling them to see where are we with this? And so I called the hospital, made sure they were on board. I called the university to make sure, everything's going well out there. So with all these phone calls, when they first started seeing the leaks, they had a team lined up to come to Arkansas to start scouring the city for leaks. And so they sent 12 people in. We had our police department looking, the patrolmen, we had Liberty utility guys out looking, and they started catching those leaks, and they shored things up. One day, when I called Brian Thomas at the hospital, and I talked to Danny Holcomb, who's
Right.
over the facilities out there.
Yeah.
I said, how is it looking at the hospital? Because that was devastating. Couldn't
Yeah.
sleep at night for all that time. And so the hospital went down to 45, the pressure was at 45, and it's normally at 60. So then we got together and they got out and they started looking for leaks. They found some major leaks, they shored those up. And then the next morning I called the hospital and said, what's your pressure looking like? Because I wanted to make sure it's not constantly going down. So that morning it was up to 50, and it's been going up ever since.
Yeah.
We
Just
called
a scare.
Tyson and asked Tyson if they would cut back on production to reduce the amount of water that they were using. UAPB was in good shape. So I think being proactive, we were able to dodge the bullet.
Yeah, for the benefit of those listening, that was, as far as the hospital was concerned, they couldn't take patients.
Right.
The water wasn't working, certainly on the
That's
upper
right.
floors, and they had a porta potties
That's right.
outside. It was a mess.
Right.
So, the floor is yours, Mayor. If you wanna end this
So-
with some comments.
So, we're seeking re-election so that we can continue or we can complete basically some of the projects that we've started. And one in particular is we do have a developer that we're working with over at Southeast who has done some similar projects in other cities in the state. He has applied for the grants. We're applying for $200 million. He's applied for grants in these other states, and not in other states, other parts of the state, Northwest Arkansas in particular. And every grant he's applied for, he's been awarded. So we're hoping to send that application in the month of February. And hopefully we can get the 200 or a part of it. I want to see the hotel, the Marriott, completed. When I look at the hotel that they're building at the casino, what I hear from some people is that they don't want their family, when they come in for family events and family groups, they don't want their family at the casino hotel. We don't have many options in town. And I think as we build up downtown, make it, we have the restaurant plaza over here off 6th Street, and then once we put housing in downtown, we get more events coming into the convention center. That hotel would be something that everybody can be proud of. Everybody likes a Marriott property, so this is a Marriott courtyard. We should be ready to break ground on that hotel in about somewhere around April. I'd say April or May, hopefully, because we're getting down to the last paper signing documents and critiquing everything to make sure everything is in order.
Have you heard from USDA on that?
Yes, we got full financing. All that's approved and behind us at this point. We have to move forward with breaking ground, so we won't have to start over with some of those environmental engineering things.
Continue
'cause
to
they
ask
expire.
questions, but is the city of Pine Bluff gonna be on the hook for the successful operation of that hotel?
No. City of Pine Bluff is not on the hook at all. That's another thing that we clarified last Friday in our meeting. No, not at
We
all.
ponied up $3 million to have some
Yeah.
skin in the game, but
2.9
after that,
million, and after
it's-
that, that's all the City of Pine Bluff
it's somebody else's
is
risk.
committed to. That's right, that's right. That's the reason we wanted the USDA funding, to backing. It's a Farmers Home Loan Bank and USDA backing.
Okay.
So it'll be basically the operator. So I think that'll be a good positive for Pine Bluff. We're looking at, we finally got clear title to land on the north side, so we're looking at building some student housing over in the UAPB University Drive area. We got site control of the property, and then I'd like to see us, before I leave, get that housing that we wanted downtown. I think it's important. I've talked to the guys who developed North Little Rock, that Argento district, multiple times. They strongly push bringing your foot traffic in, and then develop your.
Oh, that's the apartments?
Between Pine and Walnut, 3rd and 4th.
Okay, is that the ones that have gotten cold feet now because go forward tax didn't pass? Are we
Well-
talking about the same thing? The apartments like at 6th and,
No, you're talking about 6 in Convention Center Drive.
right, that's different.
That's different.
Okay,
Yeah, this is different.
so you're talking about, I'm sorry,
I'm talking about the property between Pine and Walnut and 3rd and 4th.
Okay,
Actually, right across the street from where we are almost.
right, okay. And what's going on there?
Apartments,
Okay.
downtown apartments.
Back to the 6th and Convention Center, do you have any update or, I mean, they backed away a little since Go Forward tax didn't pass, but I didn't understand how Go Forward's existence or non-existence
I don't
affected
think that
them.
had anything to do with Go Forward.
Okay,
I think that had to do with the developer and some projects that he had going in Texas. And something came up to cause those dollar amounts of those projects to go up. And so he didn't want to start a project here until he finished those projects, since his cost was going up.
okay.
That's my understanding from him. And so he said he would get back with us later if it worked out, but right now he felt like he needed to put the brakes on this project until he finished those projects that he had underway. So I think we're just gonna open it up and start looking for, cause he hasn't promised us that he's coming back, but he will do his best.
Okay.
So,
Anything else you want to
we
say?
found another developer. Pine Bluff has promise. I love the people in Pine Bluff. I've enjoyed the work that we've done in Pine Bluff. I think that we've made a lot of progress over the last 7.5 years, almost 8 years. And I think that we need to be consistent for another 4 years for sure to keep that progress going. A lot of partnerships have been made, and we want to strengthen those partnerships as we keep moving things forward.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for spending time with us. Thank you all for joining. Thanks, Evelyn Colvin, for making this happen.